I was writing a script on the China-US strategic dialogue in Alaska when I came across this piece by the Atlantic's contributing writer Thomas Wright. And a particular paragraph caught my eye. Wright said that China and the US pose threats to each other's interests, and both will have to acknowledge the fact. And then he wrote, quote, "That will be difficult for the Biden administration, which is accustomed to assuming that American interests are not a threat to any other government, but broadly benefit all major world powers." That's an intriguing criticism. You see, unlike Trump, who frankly never really hid his self-interest, the Biden administration is more or less claiming to stand on a higher moral ground. It wants to be a model, an anchor, a unifier. Even when it's trying to take on China, it wants to lead other countries in doing it. Like-minded nations, that's the phrase he'd like to use. His Secretary of State drew ire at Alaska when he basically said these nations, at least those he visited, don't like China. That's the phrase his Secretary of Defense used when trying to woo India during his visit to the country. Now, this might not be popular knowledge, but Biden didn't invent the term. There is a like-minded group of developing countries, LMDC. It is a group of, developing countries that negotiate in international organizations like the UN or WTO as a bloc. These countries represent more than 50% of the world's population and comprise China, India, Saudi Arabia, Myanmar, and many others. The name is self-explanatory. It's about representing developing nations' interests and augmenting the share of their voices in international affairs. What's Biden's like-minded nations about? Containing, suppressing, countering, whatever the word is, it's about trimming China down. Why? Because China is strong, powerful, and most importantly, different. Not like-minded, not to the US at least. The current US administration, like so many before it, believes that its system of governance, that particular form of democracy, and its values are beneficial and should prevail. But are they? Are like-minded nations benefiting? Not sure they do. Blinken spent all that time and energy to build up a mirage of concerted efforts against China only to be shot down at the dialogue. Are they finding a model in human rights?
No justice! No justice!
Well, at least people in Japan, South Korea are not. 6 Asian Americans just got shot dead in Atlanta. And in a twisted way, that's the only reason why Asian Americans are finally getting a sliver of voice in the US. On the coronavirus pandemic, US has hoarded more than enough vaccines for itself. Its commitment to boost India's vaccine production won't effectively kick in until 2022. And besides Mexico and Canada, America hasn't donated or sold doses to other countries. And even if their intentions are really to take China down a notch, that failed spectacularly. Even Americans are tweeting that Blinken got schooled by China. And what is the White House doing? Yelling at Blinken for bringing a staffer with purple hair to the dialogue. Hair color. Now, Blinken visits Europe, standing with the EU just after both sides imposed sanctions on China. No doubt trying to show unity with more like-minded nations, but even the EU nations are boasting about the recently finished negotiation on the CAI with China. There is nothing wrong with assuming that one's values and interests could benefit people. But in assuming too much, there is a danger of failing to take note of what's really going on.